The movie begins by showing a guy named Casey Bauman, and he lives in a martial arts place in Japan. The boss there is Takeda-sensei. Casey really wants to be good at this thing called Bushido, which is like being super tough and disciplined. He works really hard, and Takeda-sensei and his daughter Namiko start to like him. One day, while Casey is training with Namiko, Takeda-sensei shows up and gives them some advice. He tells them that in martial arts, it's important to stay cool and calm when you're fighting. Later that night, Takeda-sensei opens up a special box, and inside is this old ninja suit and weapon called Yoroi-bitsu. It's been in their family for a long time. Takeda-sensei gathers all the students and says that Casey and another guy named Masazuka are the best in the class. But Masazuka doesn't like being compared to Casey. He thinks he's better, and he really doesn't like Casey because Casey and Namiko are close friends. The next day, Takeda-sensei set up a match and asked Casey and Masazuka to fight each other. Masazuka really didn't like Casey, and he attacked him right away, being super mean about it. Takeda-sensei tried to stop him, but Masazuka was too mad to listen. He kept hurting Casey and even tried to stab him with his katana, which is like a big sword, but Casey managed to defend himself and hurt Masazuka under his eye. Because Masazuka did something really bad, Takeda-sensei had to kick him out of the dojo. Masazuka was really upset about this and promised to get back at everyone in the dojo. He was pretty mad. A long time later in New York City, at the Temple Industries plant, there's this secret group called The Ring that's welcoming new members with a big ceremony. Now, over in Russia, there are these two big-shot business leaders who are having a big problem with The Ring. They need to be taken care of, and it's Masazuka, the ninja assassin, assigned to do it. A few days pass, and at the Koba Dojo, run by Takeda-sensei, he gathers all his students together. He wants to show them something special called Yoroi-bitsu that he's had for 30 years as the Grandmaster. Then, out of nowhere, Masazuka shows up and says he should be the new Grandmaster of the Koba Dojo, but Takeda-sensei says no way. Masazuka even threatens that they'll be sorry for not making him the Grandmaster. Takeda-sensei thinks Masazuka might attack, so he asks Casey and Namiko to protect Yoroi-bitsu. He trusts Casey because he's a good guy and wants him to look after his daughter and that special thing, Yoroi-bitsu. To make it short, Casey and Namiko took Yoroi-bitsu to New York. They kept it safe in a vault at Triborough University with the help of Takeda-sensei's friend, Professor Garrison. Now, back in Japan, Masazuka went crazy and attacked the dojo. He killed everyone there, even his own teacher, Takeda-sensei. Namiko tried to call her dad, but got no answer. Right when Masazuka was leaving the dojo, he heard the phone ring, and it showed that Paul Garrison was calling. So, Masazuka got in touch with the Ring to find out where Paul Garrison was. In the meantime, Casey was trying to find his mom in New York. He went to her last known address and found out that she had passed away a few months ago from stroke. He went back to Professor Garrison's place and told Namiko about it. At the same time, Masazuka figured out where they were and sent his buddies to go after them. Not just Casey and Namiko, but Professor Garrison and his family were also targeted by Masazuka. Unfortunately, his henchmen managed to kill them all. Casey and Namiko barely escaped and found refuge in an inn. While they were watching TV, they got a big shock. The news said they were the ones who murdered Professor Garrison and his family, and now the police were after them. Then, the Ring's bad guys attacked them again, and this time, they fought on a crowded train. It was crazy. After finally getting away from Masazuka's henchmen and getting off the train, the police showed up out of nowhere and arrested Casey and Namiko. That night, Masazuka, pretending to be Namiko's lawyer, sneaked into the police station and turned off the lights. He hurt some police officers in the dark and got hold of Namiko. In all the chaos, Casey saved one of the cops from getting killed by Masazuka. But Masazuka kidnapped Namiko and kept asking her to spill the beans about Yoroi-bitsu. He even told her that he killed his own father and everyone in the dojo because he thought they betrayed him. So, Casey found out about Masazuka from one of the guys who attacked him earlier. He decided to go to Temple Industries and got Masazuka's phone number from the big boss, Mr. Temples. Casey called Masazuka and said he'd give him Yoroi-bitsu in exchange for Namiko's safety. Casey rushed over to the university to grab the chest, put on a ninja suit, and grabbed some weapons. Meanwhile, Masazuka headed to the place they agreed on. When he got there, he saw the chest with Yoroi Bitsu being lowered by a crane. He let Namiko go and went to the chest, but it was empty. Just then, Casey, wearing Yoroi Bitsu, showed up. They were about to have a big showdown. At the same time, the ring members arrived and attacked them all, following Mr. Temple's orders. Masazuka easily beat up Mr. Temples, while Casey and Namiko tried to get away from the attacks by Mr. Temples and his gang. After Masazuka managed to defeat all the bad guys from the ring, he did something sneaky. He used a blowpipe to shoot a poisoned arrow at Namiko and teased Casey by dangling the antidote bottle. They got into a big fight, and during the struggle, Masazuka dropped the antidote bottle by accident. Casey got super mad. While they were fighting, the NYPD helicopter shone its lights on them. Masazuka used a ninja move to blind Casey with his sword's reflection and vanished right in front of him. To defend himself, Casey closed his eyes and fought back using his instincts. He stabbed Masazuka in the back, and that was the end of him. Casey felt really sad because he couldn't save Namiko. Then he remembered something his ninja sensei taught him about the katana having the power to harm and heal. He found the antidote in Masazuka's katana handle and used it to save Namiko. It worked super fast, and she was okay. Before leaving, Casey did one last thing. He chopped off Masazuka's head. The next day, a police officer told Casey and Namiko some good news. They were no longer accused of hurting Professor Garrison and his family. Even better, the police caught Mr. Temple and got rid of the ring once and for all. The officer gave back their passports and told them to leave New York. So, Casey and Namiko went back to Japan. They wanted to say goodbye to their teacher, who had passed away, and keep taking care of the Koga Dojo. And of course, they kept a close watch on Yoroi Bitsu. In the next scene, we see Casey Bauman in a jewelry store. He's buying a necklace as a surprise gift for his wife, Namiko. Little did Casey know there were two crooks watching him, planning to steal his stuff. But Casey didn't have any trouble taking care of those guys and went back home. When he got home, he gave the necklace to Namiko, who was expecting their first child. She looked super happy with the gift. Later that night, Namiko really wanted some chocolate, so she asked Casey to get it for her. Being the good husband he is, Casey went to the store to buy some. But when he was about to pay, he realized his wallet was missing. He rushed back home. At the same time, someone sneaked into their place and was getting ready to hurt Namiko. When Casey got back home, he was horrified to find that his wife had been killed, and there was a mark on her neck from a barbed wire gun. So, on the day of the funeral, Casey's best friend, Nakabara, who was also a student of Takeda-sensei, came to see him. Nakabara was really sorry about what happened to Namiko. He offered Casey a chance to train at his dojo in Thailand to help him cope with the pain of losing his wife. But Casey said no because he wanted to find the person who killed his wife and get revenge. He thought those robbers he fought with after buying the necklace might be connected to her murder. So Casey went to a dojo to see if he could find any clues. At the dojo, he got into a fight with some people who were training there. After a big scuffle, Casey finally figured out where those two robbers were and followed them. He caught them in a dark alley and took them out, but he didn't get any info about his wife's murder. That's when he decided to listen to Nakabara's advice and headed to Thailand. When Casey arrived at Nakabara's dojo in Thailand, Nakabara welcomed him warmly and introduced him to all his students. Casey decided to stay there for a while as he continued to investigate Namiko's murder and hunt down the person responsible. One day, while he was sparring with Lucas, one of Nakabara's students, Casey lost his temper and started attacking him pretty harshly with a bakken, which is a wooden sword. Nakabara reminded Casey to keep his emotions in check and suggested he try firewalking training. But Casey couldn't finish it because he still couldn't forget Namiko. Feeling restless, he went to a nearby bar and ended up in a brawl with some drunk guys. The next day, Casey wasn't feeling great because of all the drinking the night before. He was about to go pick some fruit in the garden when Lucas, being considerate, stepped in and offered to do the work for him. Casey thanked Lucas and went back to his room, but he couldn't rest peacefully. It felt like his instincts were warning him about something bad. And unfortunately, his instincts were right. Casey got the news that Lucas was found dead in the garden, just like how Namiko was killed with that barbed wire weapon. Casey talked to Nakabara about it, and Nakabara knew that the barbed wire weapon was the work of Koro. Nakabara then shared a story with Casey. He told him that Casey's father and Takeda-sensei, along with a man named Isamu, were the top students of the Koba dojo. When Sensei passed away, Isamu challenged Takeda for control of the dojo. Takeda won the fight and became the Grandmaster. Isamu's little brother, Goro, saw the whole thing and vowed to get revenge for his brother's death, even if it took 3 generations. Now, Goro is the big boss of a drug cartel in Myanmar. Nakabara told Casey that he should go back to the United States because Takeda's son-in-law could be a target for Goro. But Casey had other plans. He asked Nakabara to help him find Goro because the guy was hiding in Myanmar, and even the authorities there were scared of him. Nakabara gave Casey an old map of Burma from World War II. It had a mark showing where ninja weapons were buried. After thanking Nakabara, Casey went straight to Myanmar. He met a friendly taxi driver named Mike, who took him to an inn. Casey got ready with all his ninja gear and some poison. That night, with Mike's help, Casey found a bar where the drug dealers hung out. While he was sitting alone, having a drink, a guy came up and offered him something. Casey wanted info about Goro, so he followed the guy. When they got to a quiet spot, Casey mentioned Goro's name, and the guy got all suspicious and called his friends. They tried to gang up on Casey, but he managed to take them all down and get the information he needed about Goro. After Casey went back to his hotel to rest, the police who were in cahoots with Goro barged into his room. They wanted to arrest him, thinking he was an American spy. Casey tried to run away, but there were too many police and they had guns. He couldn't get away, and they took him to jail. In prison, they treated him really badly, torturing him in different ways. But Casey decided to fake being unconscious to make the police stop hurting him. As they were about to put him in a cell, he suddenly woke up, fought the police officers, and took their clothes. Now dressed like a cop, Casey tried to sneak out of the prison. Before leaving, he got some info about where Goro was hiding from one of the officers. The cop mentioned that Goro was in the middle of a forest. Once he was out of prison, Casey asked Mike for help again. Mike took him to the forest where Goro was hiding. Goro's men already knew Casey was coming and were patrolling the area. Casey fought with them and managed to take them all out, grabbing their weapons in the process. As Casey ventured deeper into the forest, he eventually stumbled upon the graves of the Japanese soldiers that Nakabara had talked about. There, he armed himself with a box filled with ninja weapons, hidden beneath a wooden tombstone marked with the Nakabara clan symbol. With everything set, Casey kept on his journey and eventually reached Goro's secret hideout. He sneaked into Goro's headquarters and quietly took out Goro's men one by one. Once they were dealt with, Casey rigged the place to explode and then faced off with Goro's top bodyguard and right-hand man, a guy named Mayat. A fierce battle ensues between Casey and Mayat. Although Casey is quite overwhelmed by Mayat, he finally manages to kill him by stabbing his heart and breaking his neck. Casey then goes to Goro at his base and fights the old man. Casey managed to slash Goro's stomach, but the man could still get up. Goro wraps barbed wire around Casey's neck in the middle of the fight, but Casey uses all his strength to break free and manages to fend off the attack, then throws Goro to the ground before decapitating him. In a nutshell, Casey had finished getting his revenge, and he went back to Nakabara's dojo. Nakabara was super happy to have Casey back. While they were talking, a delivery guy came to see Nakabara. Casey noticed that the emblem on the delivery guy's knife was just like the one the robbers had in Japan. And that's when Casey figured it out. Nakabara was the one who killed Namiko and Lucas. It turns out that Nakabara was a drug dealer all along, and he used Casey to take out the Goro drug cartel so he could control the drug trade in Southeast Asia. Nakabara gave Casey a choice: join him or die. But Casey didn't want to team up with the people who killed Namiko, so they had a brutal fight. Casey kicked Nakabara through a wall, revealing a room filled with ancient stuff. They kept on battling, this time with guns. Casey slashed Nakabara across the middle, and Nakabara stabbed Casey's left shoulder with his wakizashi. Then, Nakabara tried to attack Casey, but Casey grabbed the barbed wire and strangled Nakabara to death. After Nakabara was gone, Casey told Hiroshi, one of the dojo students, about Nakabara's real plans. Hiroshi found a package for Nakabara that turned out to be full of drugs. Knowing this would ruin the dojo's reputation, Hiroshi decided to act like nothing happened and thanked Casey for revealing everything. With his revenge complete, Casey went back to Japan and dropped Namiko's locket into a pool, bringing some closure to his loss. So the moral of the story is, in the world of martial arts and revenge, always double-check the emblem on a delivery guy's knife before you trust them with your secrets.